Well, it got pretty warm up here. What are you doing there? You typing?
Yeah, I'm finishing up some emails quick. I have a out and about day, so I gotta get to answering some people. Plus, I am gonna be taking a jog in a bit, so we are. That clap didn't sound bad on the recording, but we will be at it.
Well, if we do this one, this is number 16.
We can do it. But you just have to forgive me finishing this email real quick.
I forgive you. We haven't gotten to forgiveness on the marital arts.
I don't know if we have enough time to cover that one.
Not today. Would you like some butter coffee made with Colombian Coffee Connection coffee?
I would love some. I'm just learning about a new webinar service called StreamYard. I actually haven't started learning about it yet. I just heard about it. Yeah. Ching ching.
Ching. Love you. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's sip our coffees. Oh, StreamYard is for a smaller audience, looks like.
So I should probably go full disclosure now, since I last talked to Irvin about Colombian Coffee Connection, Colombian-cc.com. When I posted one of our last podcasts, I said that I didn't have any financial interest anymore in the business because he's doing it all out of Colombia. And he posted on the podcast, yeah, you get a percentage. And he meant a percentage of the company, not a percentage of profits. And then he said, I can't pay anything out right now, and I was like, oh, wow, all right. Because we hadn't discussed anything like that, but I was okay with not getting anything. But since he now said that I do, now I'm okay with getting something. So that's it's fun being a founder of a company and then finding out that you are at some point in the future going to share in some profits. So everybody get out there and buy Colombian coffee from Colombiancc.com, COLOBIAN. A lot of Americans, or even spell check in America, will correct Colombian to COLU, and it's COLO. So that's something to watch out for. It happened to me many times when I was building websites and doing all the stuff in the beginning when we started the company. So get a hold of Irvin Liz and order up your Colombian coffee. I think I have a little bit. Yeah, it tastes. Maybe I put a little too much brain octane in. Is it missing something to you?
Nope. I don't think so.
Maybe it's just my taste buds this morning.
It's slightly weaker on the coffee, but it's still really good.
I did notice that the press didn't press as hard, so that must have meant that some of the coffee had fallen. Like when you're brewing the coffee, if you bump the table, some of the coffee will fall. So we have to watch out when it's on that stainless table that we're not doing stuff on the table, because that shakes the thing and then they start to fall, the grounds. So yeah, I think I might go with a slightly finer ground this next time and try that. So I'll describe while you're typing how I make the butter coffee, since I haven't actually put out a video yet. I French press the coffee. I grind it as coarsely as possible, and we use a Breville burr grinder, and I grind it as coarsely as possible. I do 30 grams 30 to 32 grams, and let it brew for 6 minutes in the French press. And then I press it over 20 seconds. So it takes 20 seconds to press the plunger all the way down. And then I just do like a third of a half a pound of butter, which sounds kind of funny, but we buy the butter in half pounds. So I almost use a third. I haven't weighed that out. I should weigh that out. But the butter is to your preference anyway. You know, if you want it more creamy, more buttery, you put a little bit more in. So I'll weigh that and I'll describe that. But I'll put it on our website too. We don't have a podcast website yet, but we're doing one. So I'll put the recipe on there. I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to know a lot of our recipes that we do when we cook and stuff. And then I do a heaping tablespoon of raw sugar, and that's to your taste also. And then I do a 5-second pour of brain octane. So if you buy the brain octane in the jugs that you can see on Bulletproof, and remember, we don't have any sponsors yet, but it's a proud sponsor. Bulletproof is a proud sponsor. I'm sure they love us using their product and talking about it. So the Bulletproof Brain Octane.
Well, we're hoping their podcast get out a little further, right?
Their podcast?
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
they're a pretty massive podcast.
No, Dave Asprey needs our help. We need to help him spread the word. So, a good 5-second pour. And if you buy it, you'll know what I mean. It's real easy to just count it out.
Yep. And
then I blend the butter, the sugar, and the brain octane in a full, it's got to be a 32 ounce or a 30 ounce French press.
Yeah, it's, did you use all the water that I put in the carafe today?
No. I just fill it up to the right below the spout.
I think it's like 3/4 of a liter. So it might even be 20 some ounces. Because it's not quite a quart, it's not quite a liter.
Well, let me look.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's some kind of metric, because they typically use metric units whenever you look up a recipe for coffee and so forth. They're metric units. Does it even say on it?
Yeah, by the time, the coffee.
Yeah, I thought that's what we were looking for.
I think it's a 32 ounce. By the time we're done with coffee, sugar, and brain octane, we're at 1.25 liters in the blender.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the ratios are something to figure out. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, and people, if they use different butter, it's going to have a different flavor, and if they don't use raw sugar, it's going to have a different flavor. And I wouldn't recommend they use anything but raw sugar, because white sugar is turbo fuel. You don't want to put white sugar in anything. And I'm sorry to the white sugar people, but and it's nothing against white sugar. And brown sugar is just as bad as white sugar. You got to use raw cane sugar.
Yeah.
So and then I blend it for 20 seconds fully, and I blend it half full first, because otherwise it'll fly
overfloweth.
out. It'll fly out the top of the blender, even with the cover on. I mean, if you got a good sealing cover, that helps, but it's hot, and that starts to pressurize the blender if you have a blender that seals. So, and I've used the emulsifier once. You know, I used the
immersion blender.
Immersion blender, yeah, and that really worked. And I've used a shaker once that didn't work so well.
Shaker.
Kind of got to use a blender.
Like a blender bottle.
Well, like I use a whisk and a like we didn't have the blender one time, and I did something. Yeah.
That's been interesting.
Yeah.
If we've
On the road
gone
and
out of
all that.
town and forgot just one component. There are certain components that are very important for all this.
Well, you know, you hear the story. Dave Asprey met a lady up in the mountains, up at high altitude, and they were making it with yak butter, and she had a blender that she would plug in, and You know,
I think they even hooked up to car batteries,
yeah,
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's how Irvin, when he was a kid, how they'd watch TV. His dad had a car battery and would charge it up, take it to town and charge it up and bring it home, and then the family could watch TV, like one show every 3 nights or something.
How about that?
Yeah, right?
Right.
Because they didn't have electricity in their village up at the top of the Andes Mountains. And there was only horse paths or donkey trails, whatever you want to call them.
Not until he was about 12 or 13, and then they...
Yeah.
Or he was at
Irvin-
the road.
Irvin, you got a great story. I know he listens to this.
Yeah.
So you got to tell us, was it horse trails or donkey paths?
Yeah, he's laughing. I can hear his laugh.
Oh, man.
John.
So we just did a little weekend trip, which was really fun.
It was not only fun, I did not realize how necessary it was
Yeah, just
to
had
get away. You know, like I think both of us have this, whether it's the Midwestern work ethic or whatever it is, you know, we're just like, just keep going.
I'm going to
Just
say
keep
this
going.
out loud. You must have a lot more respect for me watching how I've worked since we've been married.
I actually do.
And
Appreciation.
we went to Brazil since we've been married.
Yeah.
We went to England. We went to Mexico. And then we
Been to Brazil a couple of times.
yeah.
I've taken some road trips.
Yeah.
Road trip.
And the year that we spent where I bought motorcycles and went out and rode and went to the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
We went around the country, went to motorcycle tracks, and I did track days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I needed that too.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that one time we went to Washington, D.C., and we were meeting people that we just really love and appreciate, and we were going to go out on a tour, and you're like, no, I just have to stay at the hotel room and just do nothing.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed, and because I love hanging out with you,
Yeah.
but I definitely do understand better, and I think that's something that, well, I don't know.
Well, we
if
talked about activity as our 6th marital art is staying active. And it doesn't just mean working out or going for a run, but it means actively being present in your marriage, you know, actively being there for your spouse and understanding. And, you know, you always, you know, people acknowledge that you don't really know until you walk a mile in somebody's shoes. But you're getting a much better picture because of the amount of business we do now and what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of people you're working with and hiring people and bringing on contractors to do things. And
Yeah, definitely. And I found myself even after this first, weekend away, and I'm like, maybe I should take more full weekends, even at home. And then right away, I booked something for this Saturday.
for us to go somewhere.
Well,
a meeting.
And
A meeting.
2 meetings. And because I'm like, well, during the week it's going to be busy, so I should put it on Saturday.
Weekends are a phenomenal opportunity because the person we're meeting with has a job.
Yeah, she was available during the week on the evenings, but then I'm like, okay, what if we're going bike riding? At least on a Saturday we could put a bike ride before or after kind of thing.
Or if
And
I have
so-
to monitor machines, or if you have to do something,
Yeah, and at least
business-wise.
a meeting is different in the sense that I'm not at the computer doing this or that, and
Yeah.
so yeah. So what was that? The point of that?
How much more respect for me you must have.
Mm.
Which
I do actually.
which sounds not relatively. It sounds arrogant, or it sounds like I might be whining a little. I don't know. It feels to me like I'm whining if I say I want you to understand what I go through, because that's not really a man thing, It's not like, you need to know how hard it is for me, that's not something.
You don't think it's men would?
I think lots of men would say that, but I think it's hard to say. I think there's a lot of whiny men, that are,
What's the difference between
complaining, but I think
whining
it's
and complaining about it and legitimately?
It's a lack of appreciation. And I'm not saying that you don't appreciate me, but I've noticed that you talk about how much you appreciate me, not necessarily more, but in different ways. You know, like, you know, you used to appreciate me, and as I appreciated you when we first got together. You know, we liked being with each other. We fell in love. We loved each other, that kind of stuff. But now it's a little bit more like when we're somewhere, like when we're at the bed and breakfast this last weekend, people asked, you know, everybody's asking everybody at the breakfast table, what do you do? What do you do? And I said, I own a machine shop. And I'm comfortable saying that because normally I just don't want to explain to people what I do. Oh, okay. Because it's so in depth, right? Mm-hmm. And so you said, well, Jon says he owns a machine shop, but
it's way more than that.
It's way more. And then you start to explain. And then you saw what happens. People ask questions, and then I'm stuck going into details and, you know.
Well, it's like the earth roamer you'd like to get. It's like if you said, yeah, I have a camper, and just, you know, and let it go. You're like, no, that's not just a camper, and it's not even just a motorhome.
By the way, we should tell Earth Roamer that we're traveling the country this year, and we're going to be doing our podcast from everywhere. And we mountain bike, and we're adventurers, and we love to hike, and we love to go to the mountains, and we love to go to the valleys, and we love to go to the desert, and we love to bring along things that help us survive. Mm-hmm. And we're pulling a camper because an Earth Roamer at this point is a little bit financially out of reach. So if Earth Roamer would love to sponsor our podcast, and I'd do a video podcast then if they want to give me an Earth Roamer and I can travel in it, and
it will hook it up with little cameras and do more GoPro stuff.
We are recording geniuses. We do stuff all over the place, and I have for years. I'm a martial artist, and I've videoed my martial arts trainings and put them online. I've been doing it since I had to program websites with HTML. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we know how to get the word out. But I'll tell you what, I wouldn't even have to own it. I could have it for a couple of years and give it back to them.
Yeah.
And I would be fine with that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Come on, Earth Roamer. Hashtag Earth Roamer. Everybody listening, hit up Earth Roamer and tell them.
They are pretty sweet.
Give Jon and Tara Earth Roamer so that they can do fun podcasts from all over the country.
Show us the best mountain bike tracks.
That's right.
For couples.
Right.
Like couples stuff.
Yeah.
Like active couples or aspiring.
And I almost have my helicopter pilot's license, so I could finish that, and then Bell Helicopter could give us a helicopter, and I'd build a trailer to pull the helicopter, and we would go as far as we could in the Earth Roamer, and then we'd fly around, and we would do sky videos, and we would do, I mean, this could be perfect, and we could get the word out.
And the traffic over Atlanta this morning is pretty dense.
No, we'd be like, the traffic over Nome, Alaska is a whole herd of caribou. As we're flying in our Bell helicopter, oh, look at that neat Earth Roamer down there. Yeah, see, I'm a marketing genius, so.
You are amazing. Well, you did initiate me by going our trip to Colombia, which was like very intense.
Wasn't it spectacular?
So, it was very amazing in many ways.
Yep. Say the scariest thing. Just why do you always act like it was harrowing?
But it wasn't just like one thing. It was like, it was pretty high tension because like the roads the whole way were mudslides, and narrow passages in the mountains, and we're not talking like, they were not great roads. They were washed away. There's one lanes. They were literally where it was asphalt.
Yeah.
Half of the road was washed away underneath. So, Jon, it's not just one thing.
Are you talking to me?
I'm talking to you. It wasn't just one thing. Or they had helicoptered in a bridge to span this gorge. Yeah. And the supports had washed away. Yeah. And so you just had to take the old road anyways. Well, and it was just one thing after another. So it's like your body is meant to deal with
Are we sitting
peaks
here
and
now?
Stress. Yes, you asked me to share.
I was the one that got injured in Colombia. I got fire anted.
You did. I got bamboo spikes.
You got
in my hand.
bambooed.
I got bambooed.
Could we call it bamboozled?
And so, amazing trip.
Yeah.
Just as amazing as it was scary, I'll say. And, it's like here you can have close calls on the road, like that one guy who was obviously texting and driving coming into our lane.
Oh man, he was a third in our lane. If I had not been paying attention, like if I was texting like normal,
Yeah.
I mean we would have hit.
Like normal. Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I don't text like that.
So,
But,
that's big enough to scare. But imagine that kind of stuff like every half hour or hour, it's different. I'm sure people, well, even our driver initially, he is from there, but he was afraid.
Yeah, I had to
So
drive.
I was going to say it depends on what you're conditioned to, but
Yeah.
people there are not even necessarily conditioned to that either. Or they're flying down the road in a vehicle that is not well maintained and
Well, flying down the tar road, which is really curvy, which is next to cliffs, which doesn't have proper guardrails.
right.
And the vehicle that our driver was driving fast for a little bit on the tar, and it was somebody that didn't understand physics, the mechanisms of a vehicle with skinny tires, a vehicle that's small, a vehicle that's overloaded, and going very fast on a corner, on an outside corner, with a major cliff that you couldn't really see the bottom of, as he's driving with 5 people in the car and all of our luggage. And I told him, you have to slow down. Or actually, I told Irvin he had to tell him he has to slow down. And then, we switched, because I said, there's no way you can drive anymore. But everything in my world is in this car. My wife is in this car. And if it was me, I might be like, let's haul ass, dude. Can you drift a little bit? But yeah, I didn't. And you weren't the only female in the car that was scared.
Well, the
and
thing
Irvin
is,
was nervous too,
well,
and so was I.
I've lived in South America for a year, and so you get different perspectives when you've more than just visited. And, we take for granted here in the United States that we have a very responsive emergency
Well,
team.
you lived in Brazil. Brazil. Eh, oh, eh, oh, eh, oh, eh.
You're-
Brazil.
we need to have the party starter conversation.
Goal! Soccer freaks, party freaks.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
So, but we should move on to that one. That's a little more fun in that sense. But what goes through my mind is like, this is not the U.S. where like you could be in a remote area and a helicopter will come pick you up because you flew off the cliff or whatever. I mean, there it's like
Nobody's picking you up.
no one's picking you up.
If you can't climb back up, you're stuck in
you're
stuck in the river valley.
If you don't have a friend down the way with a donkey to carry you up, and this is not disrespect. This is like literal.
It's true.
And people are concerned whether we have insurance or not. It's like, there are different levels of risk.
It doesn't matter. But did you have health insurance for vacationing? Yeah, it doesn't matter when you're in South America.
At a certain point,
it matters if you cut yourself with a rusty knife that was sitting in cow shit, and now you're going to get tetanus.
It's either get injured very minorly, like we
Yes.
did,
Yes.
or nothing.
Or you're dead.
Like if you die, then it's a problem too. Like anyways.
Yeah,
let's
it's
just
the
get
worst part of drug commercials from America. And or death.
And or death. So party starter, Brazilian party starter.
I don't know if we're talking about that.
I don't know. It's a little.
I suppose we are talking about staying active in your marriage.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've been to Brazil a couple times since we've been married. I was an exchange student there for a year, and so we have wonderful friends and family there, and we get invited all the time. If we took up every invitation, we would go nowhere else.
We'd live in Brazil.
We basically, we might as well, right, at that point. And so we were invited to this wedding, and my host brother was getting married, and they had a beautiful, amazing wedding, and they first of all, you were really surprised that for the bar, they primarily provided whiskey.
Well, they have this wonderful drink down there called cachaça, and some call it pinga, and they make it's Brazilian rum, and they make their own rum. Almost every household of the older generation made their own rum out of whole sugar cane. The rum that you get in America is made off of sugarcane scraps, and in Brazil they home brew, right? So I got introduced to this rum by your